Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt and to our first edition of your live stream transfer news updates. There's plenty to talk about today, with of course a lot of Premier League clubs involved. Trent Alexander-Arnold could be on the way out of Liverpool. Arsenal could be signing an impressive forward from the Bundesliga, but there's so much to get into, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ewan to have a little chat about these latest transfer updates. Ewan, first of all, how are you getting on this morning?
Yeah, good. I'm really looking forward to starting these daily videos, which will go live at 10 a.m. Throughout the week. We'll give it a real push this next week. We're just making sure all the technical issues are resolved and we can get these videos out. We're really excited to do them and good to be with you, Matt.
Well, let's get straight into it, and let's start with that news about Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's one that's been rumbling on for quite a few weeks, if not months. We know Real Madrid have identified Trent as one of their top targets for right back to long-term replace Dani Carvajal, who's of course experienced a severe injury with his ACL recently. Reports say that Real Madrid believe Liverpool would be open to negotiating a sale in January to avoid losing the right back for free in the summer, and further reports this morning have suggested that Liverpool are starting to accept that Trent may not be signing a new contract with them, so they could be looking to just generate a small fee in January to avoid losing him for free next summer. Ewan, I want to start and ask what you think this means for Liverpool and their right back situation going forward.
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest transfer story for the next few months as well as it has been the last couple of weeks, and we've been here before when Real Madrid want a player from the Premier League and the kind of charm offensive that comes from Madrid, and you get stories constantly in the papers over there. I'm not saying trying to unsettle the player, but perhaps they are trying to do that. Remember Cristiano Ronaldo from Manchester United to Real Madrid, Gareth Bale from Tottenham to Real Madrid. This is kind of the tactic over in Spain, but with Trent's contract situation, he's out of contract at the end of the season. There's reports again from Spain that Liverpool have kind of accepted they won't sign a new deal. I don't quite believe that. I think Liverpool will move heaven and earth to try and get Trent to stay at the football club. They've also got three big players out of contract in the next season: Trent, Virgil van Dijk and Mohamed Salah. But I'd say the priority would be get Trent on a new deal because firstly, he's a homegrown player. He's got that real connection with the fans, as do the other two players. But you look at their age, Salah and Van Dijk are entering their mid-30s, whereas Trent's very much going to enter the prime of his career over the next few years. He's unquestionably one of the best right backs in the world, so it'll be fascinating to see what happens. Could it come down to money? Could it come down to potential to win trophies? He looks really happy under Arne's slot, and Liverpool are going really well, but they've got a big 2 months coming up, and they'll really test their credentials with some of the fixtures ahead. I don't know what you think where Trent's future lies, Matt.
Yeah, I think Liverpool have the advantage in this. I know he's contracted there now, but in terms of next season, there's no pen put to paper about where he's going to be. But he's a Liverpool fan. It's his boyhood club. He's been there his entire career, and I think every now and then you get these players that come into these big six clubs. They're often academy graduates, but they just have that feeling of being a future captain for that club. And I think we can see, even just watching Liverpool over the last few years, that even though he's not had that armband the majority of the time, Trent has been a leader, and he's just someone who it all means a little bit more to. And I think Fabrizio Romano even said it in the last couple of days that Trent is giving Liverpool the priority in all of this. And maybe it will come down to money at the end of the day, but it seems as though if it works for all parties, that he will be happy to stay at Liverpool. And I think that's the best thing for his career, because in the modern day you don't get many players who stay at that one club for their career, who go on and be successful, who show that loyalty. And I think maybe football needs that a little bit. But he's already won everything there is to win with Liverpool. Maybe that could work against them. Maybe he thinks, okay, I've won everything, let's go and win what's in Spain, let's win a few other bits. But I think Liverpool have the advantage here, and I'd be surprised if Trent doesn't eventually decide to stay there. And I think, like you said, with Van Dijk and Salah maybe coming to the end of their contracts as well, with the age, Trent could become the absolute focal point of that Liverpool team, not just in terms of getting the armband, but just being the star man in that team. And it's something he would absolutely deserve. But let's see how it plays out, because I think the fact that it's rumbled on this long, clearly there is a decision there to make for Trent if he wanted to stay at Liverpool. I'm sure his contract wouldn't have run down into the last 9 months anyway if it was that clear cut in his head. But I do think if I had to put a prediction on it, that he will be playing for Liverpool next season. And then we have to look at maybe who else Real Madrid could look to bring in. Now we know with Dani Carvajal's injury that they are going to extend his contract by a further year. We haven't seen the last of Carvajal in a Real Madrid jersey, but another player, and another Premier League player that they've been linked with, is Tottenham right back Pedro Porro. And he was recently quoted as saying that he was excited by links with Real Madrid and excited about their interest in him. but he has a contract until 2028. There's 4 years left in that deal, and Florentino Perez in the past has spoken about how he doesn't like negotiating with Daniel Levy. So that could be another stumbling block for them in this one. But I think, it's maybe a simplistic way of looking at it, but I think Real Madrid have clearly identified the style of right back they want to bring in. With Trent and Pedro Porro, they're both phenomenal going forward, admittedly one more so than the other, but they both maybe struggle a little bit defensively, and it's an exhausting conversation, so we're not going to go too much in depth about if Trent is a good defender or not. But do you think Pedro Porro, Ewan, is someone who could make that step up from a Tottenham side who at the moment are trying to find their feet and trying to get back into Champions League, to a club like Real Madrid who demand trophies and success every single year?
Yeah, it's also a step up going from Tottenham to Real Madrid in terms of the expectation levels and when it comes to trophies and that. But I think that he's really kind of flourished under Ange Postecoglou. I don't think he's the finished article, but it does make sense. He's Spanish. Real Madrid are one of the two biggest clubs in Spain, and that appeal will always be there for Spanish players to play for one of Real Madrid or Barcelona. What I also add is that Daniel Levy is a notoriously difficult negotiator, but Ange Postecoglou is a sort of manager where if a player doesn't want to be at the club, he will let them go or look to shift them out. He wants players who are very much buy into his project, his journey, his philosophy. So if a player's unsettled, I think Ange Postecoglou would want him to be at another club. There's plenty of options out there. Every player is replaceable. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
And my favourite story about Daniel Levy and his tough negotiation tactics, when Tottenham signed Luka Modric from Dinamo Zagreb 10-15 years ago, the president has said that within the negotiations he asked Daniel Levy, as a synonymous gesture, for 5 Tottenham jerseys with the Luka Modric's name and number on the back of it. And then at the end of it all, when Dinamo Zagreb got the invoice for the transfer, Daniel Levy had deducted the price of 5 jerseys from the price that they were paying for Luka Modric. So I think that's what Florentino Perez and Real Madrid could be getting themselves into if that's the player they want to go for. Another right back that is on that list is Josh Achiampong of Chelsea. He's an 18-year-old right back playing in Chelsea's academy, and along with Real Madrid, Liverpool, Newcastle and Tottenham are also said to be interested in the youngster. Would you be surprised if Real Madrid did go for a kind of unproven article like him?
This is a really interesting one for me, and I've put a piece together for the website which will be going up this afternoon, looking at Josh, and it's a fascinating situation because he's obviously very highly rated at Chelsea. He made his debut last season against Tottenham under Mauricio Pochettino, but he's predominantly a right back. He can play at centre back, and he could probably play at left back as well, given the kind of modern demands on fullbacks. But if you look at Chelsea, they've got Malo Gusto, who I think has been excellent since joining the club. He's only 3 years older than Achiampong. And you've also got Reece James, who's coming back to fitness, who's the club captain, and he's still relatively young as well. I think he's 24, 25, off the top of my head. So you've got 2 really good options at right back. So what does that do for Achiampong's minutes? His contract expires in 2026. So you'd imagine if he doesn't sign a new deal by the end of the season, and Chelsea will probably look to sell because they won't want to lose him on a free. So it's a real interesting one to keep an eye on. I would, like you kind of alluded to, I'd be surprised if Madrid looked at him as a first choice option there. But from all the reports, and their reports from really good sources in the UK and Spain, that he is a player that Madrid have tracked for a long period of time. So they might view him as a incredible talent. They think they can integrate into the first team, because Madrid don't really have another natural right back in their squad. They've got players that can play there, but they don't really have a natural right back. Like Tchouaméni can play there, Valverde can play there. They've got a couple of younger defenders that can play there, but they will bring in a new right back in the January window. I've got no doubt about that. So this is a really interesting one to keep an eye on. There's also interest from Liverpool as well in the player. Dortmund, Newcastle, PSG have all also been monitoring his development. So he's one to keep an eye on.
I think there's almost an underlying problem at play for Chelsea here as well, because there have been some players that have come through that academy that have done well for them, but with the sheer number that they have in that first team squad, with the amount of players that they're bringing in, you're going to have players like Achiampong, like Alfie Gilchrist, who broke into that first team last year, the year before, who despite the opportunities they get at the start, are going to see that there's not much of a pathway in there, and they might also look at someone like Conor Gallagher, who's a Chelsea boy and was still forced out of the club. So from a player's perspective, I think a move away from Chelsea could be the best thing for his career, but let's see how that plays out. Make sure to get involved in the live chat. Let us know which option you think Real Madrid should go with. Is Trent or Porro the best way, or should they go a little bit younger? Moving on to the next story, and it's a big one coming out of Spain, and Barcelona president Joan Laporta has confirmed that they rejected a package deal worth up to €250 million for Lamine Yamal during the summer transfer window, and based on recent reports and also reports that came out at the beginning of the window, it does seem as though that club was PSG. Now, in our latest market value update, Lamine Yamal's value was increased to €150 million, putting him in the top 10 most valuable players in the world at just 17 years of age. But this PSG offer goes way above and beyond, almost double that value. I think, look, I don't think any of us are surprised that a club would offer as much cash as they could for a player like Lamine Yamal. But are you maybe surprised that it came so early in his career when he was just 16 at the start of the summer window?
Yeah, perhaps, but he's clearly a generational talent, and Barcelona have PSG have previous for signing big name players from Barcelona. Maybe tried to sneak another one in there, but there was no chance he was leaving Barcelona. Even if the bid was accepted, I doubt he would have left the club. But what an incredible talent! You mentioned being the most valuable 17-year-old of all time. He's the most valuable Spanish player of all time on Transfermarkt. Looked at PCS yesterday. He's had the most minutes of any teenager across the top 5 leagues this season. 10 goal contributions. He's a scary player, but I don't think there's any real danger of him leaving Barcelona in the summer. I think he'll be there for a long time. Probably the Premier League would be the more logical step later on in his career. I don't think that top players have a huge appetite to go and play in the French league. No disrespect to League One's a very underrated competition in my opinion, but I don't think top players want to be going there. They want to be playing in the bigger leagues and challenging for the Champions League, which PSG famously haven't been able to do despite all the investment over the last decade.
I think a lot of people have been saying that there's an element of surprise that Barcelona turned down a bid like this, given their financial situation and the struggles they've had with, for example, even registering Dani Olmo at the start of the season. But I think if you look over the course of a career for a player like Lamine Yamal, if he does spend his career at Barcelona, could that be worth more than 250 million to them over the course of his career with the sponsorship money he'll bring them, with the success he'll bring them, the prize money? For me, I think from a Barcelona perspective, it would have been a no-brainer. He could very well be the next Messi, the next Ronaldo, the next player who wins 4, 5, 6 Ballon d'Ors, because the numbers he's putting up at his age, how important he is not just to Barcelona but to the Spanish team during the Euros as well. Like you said, he's clearly a generational talent. The only concern I'd have, and I know it's one that's been spoken about a lot with Barcelona recently, but is the sheer number of games that he's playing. Like you said, they're the most minutes of any teenager. Gavi is just on his way back from an extremely long-term injury. Pedri has had his injury concerns as well. And when Barcelona can't spend as much money in the window, they are relying a lot on the players that La Masia is producing, and they're incredibly high-quality players. But if you rely too much on those young players, if you give them 2 minutes, if you put too much stress on their bodies at that young age, there could be some injury concerns down the line. So I'm sure that's something they're thinking about with Lamine Yamal. But no surprise that a big team has come in and tried to take him early in the career. Let's move on to Manchester United and a few targets that they've identified at Bayern Munich, and there could be a raid of Vincent Kompany's squad coming in January or the summer from Manchester United. The first one of those is Alphonso Davies, who is said to be one of United's targets for left back next summer. They are reportedly aware that Real Madrid lead the race to sign the Canadian fullback when his contract expires at the end of the season. Reports in Germany saying there are no new concrete talks about extending Davies' stay. With the injuries to Shaw and Malacia that we've seen, Ewan, with players like Dallo and Mazraoui having to deputise at left back this season so far, I suppose it's no surprise that United are looking to strengthen in that area. But how do you feel about Alphonso Davies being the man they're looking at?
I think it's probably a little bit unrealistic for Manchester United to expect to get him. Left back's clearly an area that needs address. You mentioned injuries to Shaw and Malacia. I think Malacia is nearing a return after well over a year out, but if Real Madrid come calling and they're challenging Liga titles and Champions League, and Manchester United are hovering around mid-table in the Premier League, it's not that enticing an option, and you'll probably stick at Bayern Munich would be a more attractive proposition to Davies. It's also he's a free agent in the summer, so you're going to have interest from lots of clubs. You look at someone like Manchester City, could they enter the race? They don't have a kind of natural left back. Every club in the world will probably look at Davies on a free, but I think he's either destined for Madrid, which I think he will go to Madrid, or he could even stay at Bayern for another few years. He's still only 23, which I find remarkable. He seems like he's been around for a long time, but yeah, I don't think Manchester United is the top destination for players like this anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I think Real Madrid is written in the stars that he'll be there next season. We know the interest has been there. It's not just now with his contract coming to an end. They have looked at him in the last year or two as well, and when you see a player like Alphonso Davies, I know he's maybe gone out of favour a little bit and hasn't hit that same form at Bayern Munich, but when you look at a player of his quality and of his value, especially not signing that new deal, you see Real Madrid putting that pressure on. Maybe it could be a similar situation to what you said about Gareth Bale from Tottenham. You know, they're putting that pressure on and maybe convincing Davis not to put pen to paper so they can save a little bit of money. But also for the player, the benefit is he can demand quite a big signing on fee, and a lot of that money that would have gone to a club can go in his pocket. But I agree, and I think the reports have said that Man United know it's not going to be a difficult deal. It's not going to be an easy deal, rather, to get done, and maybe they are resigned to the fact that it's very unlikely, but it's worth trying for a player of his quality. But he's not the only Bayern player. Thereafter, they also maintain an interest in Davis's teammates Leon Goretzka and Leroy Sané. Goretzka could be a target for the January transfer window, while United could look to benefit from Sané's contract situation. His deal expires in 2025, but there is talks going on for him to extend. Starting with Leon Goretzka, first of all, in the January transfer window, that could be one that's coming to us a little bit quicker. Kobbie Mainoo, we know, has experienced an injury now for Man United. He's another name off Ten Hag's options for the festive period coming up. Is Goretzka one that you think could slot into that United team, Ewan, or maybe should there be a more informed player that they could look at?
Yeah, I'd avoid that one. I think Manchester United have enough aging midfielders on their books. You know, Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes has just turned 30 as well. I'm not sure that really works out. You know, he probably want a long-term deal until he's 29, so he probably wants a deal in, you know, a 3-4 year deal. It doesn't make any sense to me. Albeit he's a very good player. I don't think he's in the best of form at the moment. He's certainly not, you know, major player in Vincent Kompany's plan, so I'd avoid that. Sané one would be more interesting, obviously, you know, cracking player. Injury problems recently, but you know, I think he'd be a massive upgrade on what Manchester United have on, you know, that right wing at the moment.
I think if Goretzka, if it is going to happen, I wouldn't completely rule out a 6-month loan in the January window, because look, we know Bayern are going to be looking to sell him, like you said. He's not in Kompany's plans. Getting him off their books for a bit, but also getting him on a football pitch somewhere else can maybe just bump up that value a little bit if they do look to sell. And United, with the constant injuries they're having, we spoke with this a few weeks ago when we graded United summer business. The business that they did, the signings that they made looked really, really good on paper, but they didn't add to the depth of that squad, which was their ultimate downfall last season. And we're now looking at a potential Johnny Evans at left back for them this weekend. So those issues are still there. Maybe Goretzka in for 6 months, an extra option in that midfield can maybe take a bit of the stress off the likes of Mainoo if you have maybe a midweek cup game. I wouldn't completely rule out a loan, but I agree with you that a permanent deal wouldn't be the right option for Manchester United. With regards to Leroy Sané, he's a player that I've always loved watching. He was, of course, phenomenal at Manchester City and got that move to Bayern Munich. Maybe that could be a little bit of a factor in his head, not wanting to betray the team that gave him the chance in the Premier League by moving to their rivals. But from a United perspective, I think he'd be a very, very exciting signing, but maybe one that just isn't quite realistic as well. The next one we're going to talk about is Arsenal, and they're following the progress of Red Bull Salzburg and Slovenia forward Benjamin Sesko as they begin to plan for next summer's transfer window. He's already scored 2 goals and got 2 assists in 6 Bundesliga appearances this season, and Sesko was a weird one for me during Euro 2024 because he impressed without really providing any end product. And in the first couple of games, I remember he had an absolutely cracking attempt from like 30 yards that crashed against the crossbar, but he was more kind of a typical old-fashioned striker, that he was just running around the place, putting his body about, just causing a lot of problems for defenders. But he also has that technical ability. Like I said, he's a brilliant striker of the ball. He's really, really good link-up play. I suppose in terms of the profile, when Arsenal at the moment, they have Kai Havertz really as their main striker option, Gabriel Jesus as a deputy. Do you think switching that profile a little bit is a good direction for Arteta to take?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a bit surprised this one's came back up because he's not leaving Leipzig until next summer. It's probably, you know, a fact, it's international break. It's quite quiet for news stories, and it's, you know, it's quite handy to bring this story back up. But, you know, Arsenal obviously in form in the summer. They penned a new deal until Leipzig, and I think it was until 2029. So, you know, they've protected their asset there, Red Bull Leipzig. But, you know, they are a club that, you know, famously move on players for big profits. And, you know, by keeping him an extra year, I think what they will do is get more money for him, because he's been in excellent form. You know, he's got 3 goals in 2 Champions League games. You know, two of them are against Juventus. I think it's 10 goal contributions in all competitions. So, you know, he's clearly, when you look at, you know, the best young strikers in the world, he comes into that category. I think he really does fit what Arsenal need. You know, he's an alternative to Kai Havertz. You know, Kai Havertz is perhaps under the radar how, you know, productive and how well he's kind of fitted into that centre forward role. So, you know, I don't think Sesko comes in and he's necessarily first choice, despite, you know, having this huge reputation, because I think Havertz deserves that jersey at the moment. But, it makes sense to add him to their squad. He could be a phenomenal player in a few years. And Gabriel Jesus, like you mentioned, I think he'll be on the way out of the club. If not January, then probably next summer.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you've said there. And Kai Havertz, I think, is a victim of what he became known as at Chelsea, maybe in those early times at Arsenal, where people, I think, just have this general perspective of him as a clumsy, error-prone kind of player. But the output that he's produced for Arsenal in the last 12 or so months is absolutely phenomenal. And if I'm not mistaken, he's the second most valuable striker in the Premier League, or forward in the Premier League, according to our market values as well. So he definitely does deserve a lot more credit, I think, from a wider footballing audience than what he's getting. But yeah, Sesko, he's like I said, a player that I do enjoy watching. He's a lot of potential, and I think a move to a bigger club, of course, is inevitable. But whether that'll be to the Premier League or not is another question. But I think he's one that we'd all love to see play in the top division of English football. The final story is regarding Liverpool, and they've earmarked Palmeiras defender Vitor Reich as a possible signing for the future. They will face competition in their attempts to secure the youngster's signature, however, with Real Madrid, as with a lot of players, also among his suitors. If you want to learn more about Vitor Reich, Ben did a video with our Brazilian colleague Marcus Watts about what this player could offer, so make sure to go and check that out if you do want to learn more about the young centre-back. A €10 million market value at just 18 years of age. He's definitely a big prospect for the future. But Ewan, we'll wrap it up there for today. Thank you very much for joining us for this transfer update.
Thank you, Ben. Matt, even.
Ben. Oh, wow. Thanks everyone who has tuned in. Like Ewan said at the start, we're going to be doing these live streams daily going forward at 10 a.m. UK time every morning. So do make sure to subscribe if you want to get hit that notification bell as well if you want to stay updated on these transfer updates as we build up to what will hopefully be an exciting January window.